Welcome back, listeners and viewers. We are here with another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. Today's guest is a former congregational rabbi using his experiences to have an impact on the startups he's involved in and positively affecting organizations through his consulting practice. Let's spend a little time getting to know my friend, Avi Olitzky. Avi, welcome to the show, man.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I've since I met you a handful of years ago, you were one person that was always on my radar to get on this thing, and I'm pumped that we made this work. You've got a fascinating story. We're going to dive into some of that, but I got to say, man, like you're the first congregational rabbi I've ever had on this show.
Sure.
I think any faith, like a leader of any faith that we've had on this show. So I'll dial back my personality a little bit, but I think you and I are cut from a little bit of the same cloth in the fact that
For sure.
we're a little bit extroverted. So we'll try and get a little less fiery than we normally are when we're not recording this thing.
I love it.
And one thing I love about you, man, is that that East Coast comes out in you, and that's been something that I've enjoyed just getting to know about you. I have not had enough of that experience of being around people from the East Coast in my life, and I feel like I have a little bit of that in me. I do not subscribe to the Minnesota nice passive aggressive mindset, and that's one thing that I really appreciate about you. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to dive into here that you're rooted in, and I'm excited to share that with our listeners. Were you born and raised on the East Coast? And is that where you've spent all of your, let's go all the way up until college? Is that where you spent your whole life growing up?
Sure. Yeah, I was actually born in Connecticut, but I moved to New Jersey when I was about 2.5, 3 years old. And I grew up in New Jersey, went to school in high school in New Jersey, and then went off to New York City for college.
So when you were growing, let's dive right into the differences between the Midwest and East Coast. Just give me one example of something that is so predominantly different between where you grew up and where you live now.
It's a really good question. I don't think I could pick one thing. I could tell you that whenever I go back to Jersey to visit family or friends, or New York City, the same way, year after year, the hair on my neck just stands straight up in ways that it never used to. You begin to notice things that you never did, the way that people interact. I think it was a year or two living in the Twin Cities. This is a perfect example where I was visiting someone at the hospital. And this was at Abbott Northwestern, and someone bumped into me coming in and out of the elevator. And they turned around and said, "Watch it, buddy." And I realized it had been 2 years since I had an experience like that, which was probably 10 to 15 times a day when I lived in Manhattan. It's just a full self-advocacy all the time.
Yeah. You've done some, you've written some op-eds and stuff like that in the Star Tribune, just on, the differences between the East Coast and Minnesota. And I think it was probably related to some kind of tax thing and you've been pretty unapologetic in talking about, we've got some pretty great infrastructure here, and our education system is not perfect, obviously, but it can be better than what we've seen in other areas. So, I don't doubt that I probably put you in a bad spot of saying the one thing, but I think it's crazy to me. There's a myriad of things, right?
Oh, 100%. Look, I'll be very candid. I love living here. I 100% consider this my home. My children were all born here. We're raising them here, and I'm not leaving anytime soon. In fact, I think I'm probably 6 months away, give or take, from living in Minnesota longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life, which is a major milestone moment for me.
Is.
That said, I think that at least here in Minnesota, and as opposed to the broader Midwest, I'll comment here, there's a little bit more passivity. There's a little bit more conflict aversion. People are a little bit more guarded. All that said, what are the exchanges? Well, or the trade-offs? People seem to be a lot more community-based and a lot more gentle in their compassion. I feel like there's a different type of esprit de corps where in New York, we're alone together.
Hmm.
Whereas in Minnesota, I think we're together alone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, actually.
And then in New Jersey, New Jersey is really, when I was growing up, there were 3 area codes, right? There was Northern Jersey, Central Jersey, Southern Jersey. I grew up in Central Jersey. And now there are a ton of area codes. So there are all different pockets. But, we used to really talk about it that Northern Jersey were Yankees, Nets, Devils, Giants. Central Jersey were Knicks, Rangers, Mets, Giants, maybe Jets. And Southern Jersey were Phillies, Flyers, Eagles, and 76ers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that made Jersey 3 different states. Right?
Sports is the great unifier and non-unifier.
100%. Most of my friends growing up in Central Jersey, a lot of our parents commuted to the city to work. Yeah. Right? In Northern Jersey, why would you commute to the city? Right? Like that was the idea. But I think the first time, I'll give you one more example because I know I'm going long on this answer.
All right.
The first time that I went to the city by myself on the train, I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. And as a parent today, I would never do that with my children. Now, that's not a commentary on my parents. My parents are amazing parents, and I still think they should have done that. But growing up in Minnesota with that type of upbringing is a very different, I think one of my 4 children could navigate the city by themselves. Right. The others, would run for the hills.
Yeah. What was your family dynamic growing up? Parents, siblings, that kind of stuff?
Sure. My parents, I come from a fairly heteronormative family. Mother, father, happily married, younger brother. He's 2.5 years younger. In fact, when he was born was when we moved from Connecticut to Jersey. My folks still live in Jersey. My brother still lives in Jersey, although he lives in Northern Jersey.
Yeah. So were you a good kid? Were you a little bit of a troublemaker? Did you get good grade? Let's try and compose that all into like your whole like elementary, middle school, high school experience.
I think the best way to put this, and this 100% dates me in my answer, is if you drew a map, I'm somewhere in between Zach Morris and Ferris Bueller. Right? That's 100% who I was.
I had to wrap my head around that for a second.
Yeah, I was.
Oh man,
I was no doubt the bad good kid. I would get all good grades, but then get yelled at by the teacher for talking in class and distracting the other students. I know this comes across as hubris, but I never really had to study in high school. I had the type of memory where I could just sit and absorb and memorize, or just very photographic, eidetic memory, which my high school didn't challenge me in that way. So I would get into trouble because I wasn't engaged, and I would just goof off, but not goof off in a bad kid way, goof off in AP chemistry. I'm going to put silver nitrate in all the soap dispensers so everyone's hands turn black way.
Yeah.
Right. That type of thing.
I always ask this question, there's a couple of questions I like to dive into, but one of these questions is nature versus nurture. And so, we're going to obviously get into a little bit more of your journey, but as you look back on some of that, where do you think you fall on the nature versus nurture spectrum, and what kind of has made you the guy you are today?
That's a really good question, Aaron. I think I am probably 75 nature, 25 nurture. I see my parents in me daily. I could have a conversation and hear my father's voice, and I could have a conversation and hear my mother's voice, and I could have a conversation and hear my grandfather of blessed memory, his voice. Right? There are 100% that's in my DNA. Now, there's a thin hair between the nature and the nurture of not only is that in my DNA, but my parents raised me and reared me and coached me into capitalizing on what's in my DNA. So I say 75-25, but it could actually be 50-50.
how big of a role did obviously I know it's huge now for you, but how big of a role did faith play in your upbringing?
Oh, very big. My father is a rabbi. He was in a congregational setting when we lived in Connecticut when I was very little, and then left the synagogue world when I was 2.5, 3, and became a national dean of a reform seminary, a reform rabbinical school. Ended up leaving that when I was in high school and went on into the Jewish nonprofit space until he eventually retired. But neither of my parents are actually retired. They're both involved in many different things. And faith has always been central to our family. Some balance of a relationship with God is not something you form when you need it. It's a muscle that you regularly flex and exercise, because otherwise it atrophies. That's been really core to us. In addition, the Jewish universe, if you will, or the world of the Jewish religion is predicated on a relationship with the divine, a relationship with each other, and a relationship with the land, and specifically, the land of Israel. Putting the Israel conversation aside for a moment, it's not just an up and down between you and God. It's also being part of a community, right? And so faith was central, not just theologically, but also sociologically. And that was incredibly important to us growing up, and continues to be.
Was that something that that as you were growing up and you looked at your father and you combine his role along with your faith, was this something that it was just almost like predetermined in you that that was the direction that you were going to go, or was that something that started to
No.
blossom as you matured?
Yeah, it was something that blossomed as I matured. I often joke, and I still do this. I have all of the yearbooks from elementary. I don't know if kids even still have yearbooks, but I had all the yearbooks from elementary school up till high school, and they always ask those questions. What does Avi want to do when he grows up, right? And if you look at the back of my yearbooks, it always had this list of 20 things. Avi wants to be, an archaeologist, a doctor, and a lawyer, a New York Rangers hockey player, all these things. And it always said, and a rabbi. And that list eventually just got shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter until I was in college. And it wasn't because I eliminated the other things in the list. It was because I really came to believe that becoming a rabbi was the last dying profession of the Renaissance man, if you will. You'll forgive the gender insensitivity of the expression. But becoming a rabbi today, in my humble opinion, is really far more foundational. It's far more about not one career or one occupation, but a portal to a lot of different avenues within the universe of professionalism, and how we, what I like to say, leave the world in a better place.
Did you find that that was something that was part of your selection process when you decided to go to college after high school?
Oh, 100%. I ended up enrolling and subsequently graduating from a joint program between Columbia University in New York and the Jewish Theological Seminary. And this program allowed you to do a double major, which was, as opposed to a double major at most universities, you got a bachelor's degree from Columbia and a bachelor's degree from JTS. And so I was enrolled in two schools at once. And part of the reason was, I often joked that a lot of people went to that program to go to Columbia and get JTS on the side. I went to the program to get JTS and Columbia on the side. And that was 100%. I could have I grew up 15 minutes from Princeton. I could have gone to Princeton and studied all these texts from these brilliant minds, or I could have gone to New York and studied with those brilliant minds. And that was the decision that I made.
So I'm going to take a quick break. God, this went fast, man. I have a feeling this could even be a two-part episode. We could dive into some stuff. We might even have to just schedule another one to dive into some questions that I have on all that stuff. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to listen to a few of our community supporters. We're going to come right back with Avi, and I want to start diving into to some of these decisions that you've made, getting into the rabbinical role and that process too. So let's be right back here. Listen to a few of our community supporters and come back with Avi. Verseek Search and Consulting is thrilled to support Coalition 9 and this podcast, and we are just as excited to have them as a partner. Verseek is a Minnesota-based, high-performance recruiting firm that specializes in interim solutions, direct hire, and executive leadership search. Their team of experienced professionals and seasoned leaders across various areas of expertise and industries have been in your shoes. They quickly assess your whole company and identify key elements that will take your business to the next level. Your company's success hinges on the capacity of your people, and few areas of your business are more critical than your finance and accounting team. Your company's success hinges on the capacity of your people. Verseek can help connect you with the talented candidates within finance and accounting, along with other areas of expertise in executive search, direct hire, and interim solutions. People are the ultimate business advantage. Find your people together with Verseek and make the best possible for your business. Learn more and contact Verseek by visiting verseek.com and following them on LinkedIn. United Healthcare is dedicated to helping people live healthier lives and making the health system work better for everyone by simplifying the healthcare experience, meeting consumer health and wellness needs, and sustaining trusted relationships with care providers. UHC is continually focused on building a modern, high-performing health system via improved access, affordability, outcomes, and experiences. With a network of over 1.6 million physicians and healthcare professionals and over 6,000 hospitals, United Healthcare is dedicated to connecting employers and their employees to better health by offering quality benefits designed for affordability. For more information, visit United Healthcare at www.uhc.com. United Healthcare, helping people live healthier lives. Every year brings new challenges for Minnesota business leaders, and USI Insurance is here to take the pressure off of the employee benefits decision. Having a local presence with national resources, USI combines a client-centric culture with leading-edge technical resources so you can make an informed decision on your benefits investment. The USI team has been deeply committed to investing into our local communities and utilizes their expertise to provide solutions you can count on to protect your greatest asset, your employees. USI has been partnering with Twin Cities businesses for decades, and they would welcome the opportunity to do the same for you. Visit USI.com to learn how USI's approach to risk management and employee benefits delivers customized, actionable solutions with bottom-line impact. The topic of talent is hot in organizations of any size, and I would argue none more than small to mid-sized businesses. That's why it's crucial to have a partner to help you navigate all the HR idiosyncrasies so you can focus on working on your business and not in it. Insperity is a full-service HR partner with a high-touch, high-tech platform helping owners work through challenges like employee retention, company culture, and benefits, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and explore all they have to offer at Insperity.com. Insperity, HR that makes a difference. All right, we're back with Avi. All right, man. So you go to college, you graduate from college. What is that? So forgive me if I feel like I'm super naive, and I 100% am, and I recognize that being raised Christian. So like, what is that process from being done with college and then diving into becoming a rabbi? Like, what is the like is let's just leave it there. I'm not even going to try and.
Sure, it's a great question, and it's not naive at all. Not many people have a lens into occupational trajectories, right? I couldn't tell you if someone wants to become an immunologist or an epidemiologist. I couldn't necessarily tell you what that path was, right? Yeah. So it's a perfectly fine question. The way that it works in my denomination, I was ordained as a conservative rabbi. That's a capital C. It's not a political adjective. The way it works in my denomination is after you go, if you're going straight from undergraduate, because some people do this as a second career, after you complete your undergraduate degree, you apply to one of several different rabbinical schools or rabbinic seminaries. Because I did the joint program with Columbia and JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary has a rabbinic ordination program. And so one of my bachelor's degrees, the one from Columbia, was in sociology. The other was from JTS in Talmud and rabbinics, or rabbinic law, if you will. And so I was able, while I was finishing at Columbia, to apply to this program at JTS. And because of the work I'd already done, I came in with advanced standing. It's not uncommon for someone to go through that program and it take them 6 years or 7 years. But because I came in with this advanced standing, I was able to complete the program in about 5 years.
Wow.
And they just started what they, I think, call a low residency program for the school, where you could do some of it in online correspondence and some of it in residency. However, the way the program worked when I was there was it was 5 years, and one of the years you spent studying in Jerusalem. So that was, I think, my third year. So I went right into school, third year, and then finished school. To ask the question, or to answer the second part of that question, is not every rabbi goes into the pulpit or goes into a congregational setting. So there are different trajectories that you take, whether that's going into chaplaincy, which I've also worked in, or going into the nonprofit sector or the university world, or whatever it might be, military, which I also did. By the end of your fourth year, before your fifth year, you begin to start formulating what you want to do. And the way it worked, it's since evolved a bit. The post-COVID world changed everything. But the way it worked when I finished school was in the fall of your last year, a placement list starts coming out. And that, I think the first list probably came out in October or November. And that is a list of all of the congregations that belong to United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism. That's the confederation of conservative synagogues. Any of them that are looking for a rabbi. And this list would go, a list would come out in November, a list would come out in December, and then January. And then you would then earmark every congregation that you were interested in. They had a 20-page profile on the congregation. They all came to New York, and you shotgun interviewed for a week.
Wow.
After that, those interviews, on the last day of the week, each congregation would extend invitations to candidates to come. Then you would kind of play, moving around your dance card, again, dated expression, moving around your dance card. And over the month of February, if I remember correctly, you would go every weekend to visit, middle of the week to go visit. And then the last day in the month, then you would receive offers from congregations. So to give you a sense, I happen to have been someone who interviewed a lot, chose a lot of congregations, and was lucky to receive a lot of invitations and offers. I think I received 12 invitations. I went to 6, and I received 4 offers, if I remember correctly. So the final offers were here in St. Louis Park, Boca in Florida, Boca Raton, Florida, Denver, Colorado, and Peekskill, New York. So they were literally all over the map, and completely different congregations. Huge, small, progressive, conservative, egalitarian, non-egalitarian, right? All different models. But there were 2 deciding factors as to why I came here. There were a number of them, but the 2 chief among most were, one, this was one of the few, if not the only congregation that when I left, I actually missed the people that I met here in Minnesota. Like I was thinking about them and wanted to know what they were doing in their lives. And there was something special about this place. The second, you asked me earlier, Aaron, about nature versus nurture. And one of the nurture elements was I was very involved in my youth group. It was called USY, United Synagogue Youth. I was very involved. It was an incredibly formative aspect of my life journey. And USY started at Bethel Synagogue in St. Louis Park.
Cool.
And so to have an offer from a congregation where my youth group started, and this was a community that I could see raising, a family, not to mention, if I thought one day I'd move back to the East Coast, better to start off the East Coast than on the East Coast. And so I thought, I'll come here for a couple years.
Yeah.
16 years later.
I was just going to say, welcome to
Still
Minnesota,
here.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, so when you transition to the Twin Cities, I wonder, like, so how many people are a part of that? How many individuals are a part of that congregation?
It's a good question. It's hard to say how many individuals. I often would say anywhere between, let's call it 5,000 to 7,000. When we last took roles, if you will. There were about 1,200 families. I hear that they talk about it more like 1,400 families. One of the things that I was very vocal about and was instrumental was an evolution of eliminating synagogue dues and redefining what membership is. And so many synagogues have dues paying members and dues paying households, and that's how many they know. For me, it was more about who crosses our threshold, who's involved in our community, who's part of a program. And so, for example, we often would do these amazing speaker series that I would put together, or community events and efforts. We would partner with Benilde St. Margaret's across the street. And in my mind, any of those people who came to any of them, they were part of our community, right? They were part of our sphere of influence of doing better in the world. So to me, it wasn't only about who paid the bills, but it was also who actually, got involved. But to answer the question about how big, it was huge. It was one of the largest in North America.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, right? Like I've heard that over and over and over. So I got to imagine the amount of responsibility that goes with that. And then all of the different experiences that you had. Dude, I could sit here and dive into a million questions. I think actually I want to spend like a half day with you, just like diving into the Jewish faith and like learning more about it. Because I could probably make that a whole episode of this podcast. And there's probably a lot of people that would want to learn about it as well. Okay. So while I'm respecting everybody's time and yours as well, I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit. So how long did you stay in that rabbinical role at Bethel?
I think it was 13 and a half years, 13 and a half, almost 14 years.
And so, you spend so much time doing that. And I think, in society in general, and let's just say previous generations, you and I are about the same age, that previous generations staying somewhere for a long time was kind of a badge of honor, where I actually think now as we're progressing and thanks to younger generations, it's more of a commonplace to move around a little bit. What was that catalyst? Why was it time for you to transition out and go back into what I'm going to call the public sector?
I think I'm going to answer the question on the other end, which is why did I stay so long? And then tell you why I decided to no longer stay. Part of the reason I stayed so long was not really chasing or looking for professional tenure or growth, right? Because you're right, it was previously reflected, the longer you're in a position, how amazing that is. And within the history of Bethel, rabbis often stayed for decades.
Yeah.
I was privileged to be elevated to co-senior rabbi with my amazing colleague, Rabbi Alexander Davis. Very early, we were on this path of working together. And so it wasn't that I had a trajectory of, I could go to this level and then this level and this level. We were both running the synagogue effectively. For me, it was Bethel gave me a platform to do so many different things. I could have been at a small congregation in Connecticut, for example, or in New York, or in Indiana or Ohio. My student congregation was in Canton, Ohio. And I could have done worship services and sermons and life cycle events and helped grow the community, and it would have been lovely. But I was involved in politics, and I was doing these major, not over the top in terms of gaudy or ostentatious, but over the top in terms of impact, community efforts of music festivals and youth gatherings and amazing wine dinners and partnerships and corporate development and things like that. I was helping found and start nonprofits. I was involved in regular lobby activity on behalf of the U.S.-Israel relationship and social justice causes. I was writing and teaching and speaking and transforming the food scene from a kosher standpoint and all these different things. So I stayed because each year my job changed and my impact changed and my exposure and opportunity changed. Why I finally decided to leave, and I think we could dig into this. I got divorced in early 2019, and that was a moment that really not only compelled but cajoled me, right? It really forced me to pull the camera back and take a look at every corner and every facet of my life and do a life review and say, am I doing what I set out to do when I finished seminary at the young age of 26, right? Am I really living the way that Avi wants to live? Am I experiencing that happiness? Am I experiencing that fulfillment? Am I making that impact? Once I began that process, when you dip that into the cauldron of COVID, it really not only accelerated my thinking, but it exacerbated that whole path of, wow, the world is so much bigger. Because so many people looked at COVID, and we talk about the great resignation. For me, what COVID did was it completely tore down the walls of our institutions that I believed shouldn't have existed in the first place. And once I saw that the universe was wide open, I said, oh, I really can have that impact on a broader level. I can work with this organization and still live in Minnesota. I can work with that company and fly there and still stay here and be involved in all these ways. And when I took a step back and said, you know what? I've been here 13, 14 years. If I don't leave now, I'll stay another 13, 14 years. And I'll have been here 25 years. Because it wasn't that I had one role or one job. It was that I had one employer over that decade and a half. But I had a wide variety of opportunities. I mean, one unique example is I served as the community member at large for the HCMC IRB for human subjects research. That is not what you would expect a congregational rabbi to do, but those are the type of experiences that I had.
You know, as you look back on that time, that you know, all of your time, whether it be through schooling and then actually practicing, I got to imagine that you just experienced so much different, you know, from a diversity standpoint of experiences and the consulting and coaching that you were doing as a rabbi. But yet now it's so many of those things are translated into what you want to do. And I think also being able to have that using the universe, you know, I use that same word too, is kind of at your fingertips now, to where you don't feel like, and I hate to say this, but you're kind of in a bubble before, right? To where now it's like, okay,
100%.
you can still, you know, double down on your faith, and you can still be a major part of that community. However, now it gives you just some latitude to be able to do some things from a professional standpoint, or maybe some things from a fulfillment standpoint too, that's outside of the congregation. So you look back on that time that you had. What about that time made you decide that you wanted to get into? And as I said in the opening, you know, you've got your grubby little mitts into startups. You've got you're doing a bunch of really cool consulting and stuff like that. What about that role has prepared you to be a very good consultant and advocate for the startups you're involved in?
The first piece I'll share is this notion of leadership. When I started in the synagogue world, my leadership was referential, meaning because I had a shingle on my wall that said rabbi, I was automatically assigned leadership. You are the leader, you are the rabbi, that is your title. However, because I started developing these relationships and building these experiences, and people started to look to me for collaborative leadership, in my early days when I lacked far more humility, I often operated out of charismatic leadership. I might be charismatic, but I try to look more for collaborative and consensus leadership today. Those experiences led me to be able to interface with others. But when we talk about boots on the ground, whether it was managing a $5 million budget or raising hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in some case, or working with hiring and firing and negotiating and problem solving and addressing crises in the middle of the night, or being there with good bedside manner, all of a sudden it made me realize that every dang problem in the professional world boils down to people. That every problem boils down to people. And every second of every day when I served as a congregational rabbi was in the pursuit of helping and serving other people. And so if that was the case, then it wasn't that I became the universal expert on insert subject or topic or industry here. It was I became a practical expert on how to work with people and make them be the best version of themselves, which subsequently meant the best version of their product or the best iteration of their company or the best version of their team and so on. And so the work that I do, Aaron, is completely industry agnostic. Although I will tell you that I thought when I went into consulting, the low-hanging fruit would be the organized Jewish community, that I'd be working with synagogues and Jewish nonprofits. And much to my surprise and very much to my pleasure, the majority of my clients have actually been in the non-Jewish world. They've been in the for-profit sector. They've been in the nonprofit sector. They've been in the association, the membership industry. Part of it is because I wrote a book with my father about 9 years ago on membership and revenue and alternative models for this growth, specifically in the synagogue world. But hundreds of synagogues and churches and nonprofits have used it. And while I was in the pulpit, we're calling for that advice and expertise. And there I am thinking, people need to help people.
Yeah. You know, you've mentioned that to me in the past, in conversation, and I absolutely love that you haven't leaned on your old relationships that you had in that. You know, I'm sure you have it in some respect, but the multitude of work that you've done recently has been outside of that, which is awesome, right? Like that just is going to continue to help you learn and continue to be a better advocate for your clients and the work that you do. Okay, so I want to give you a little chance here to do a little bit of commercial on yourself. So talk. I did say, you know, you've got your hands into some startups, and then you're also doing your consulting work. So let's start with the consulting side of things. What is it that if someone's looking to bring you on, where do you focus, and where is kind of your superpower?
My superpower is I'm an idea guy. I am really, in my opinion, and this is the nature and the nurture, skilled at helping people become unstuck. I am really good at sitting around a table. Let's figure out what the problem is, especially when they're unaware of what the problem is. We're going to figure out how to barrel right through it and solve it and create this new universe. On a broader scale, what do I do and what does the firm do? We focus on 3 areas. The first area is what I call mission-driven progress. So that's the goals, the strategy, the tactics, all centered around innovation. How do we truly understand what our operational influence and our competitive distinction is, and how do we propel into a moment of success and growth? The second pillar, the second area, is business operations. So financial sustainability, alternative revenue modeling, board training, DEI auditing, all these areas become people issues, not just mission issues, working in that area. And then the third, really getting to the people, because the first is mission, the second is business and growth, and the third is the real people. It's what we call peacemaking. So conflict resolution, mediation, leadership succession planning, stewardship, exit strategy in that sense. In addition, what we call institutional palliative care. You have an organization who really should close its doors, and no one is willing to admit that. So we help them see that and then help them go from the Mount Olivet Hospital to the Mount Olivet Foundation, for example. And then on a personal level, I do a lot of coaching, a lot of facilitation. And this year I'm seeing a huge growth in speaking engagements. I speak at major conferences and do keynotes, or I'll do one-offs or do board retreats and things like that. And I'm traveling all over the country for that.
And you, you've shared this with me in the past, and I think it's no. So I don't think I'm talking out of school here, because you've talked about it on LinkedIn. So you're highly involved into a startup. I think it's a tech startup, Spiritual, right?
Sure. Correct.
Yeah. Share with me a little bit about that.
Sure. So Spiritual was born while I was still in the synagogue world. It was probably the first weeks of COVID, and I was doing last rites over FaceTime and the phone. And it was horrific. It was beyond horrific. My background, not only in the rabbinic world as a synagogue rabbi, is also chaplain. I've been a police chaplain in St. Louis Park and Plymouth. Worked with the fire department in Plymouth as well. I've done hospital chaplaincy ad hoc, and I went through the naval chaplaincy program as well and was a Navy officer. That said, it made me realize something that in March 2020 that I never realized before, although I think we all knew, which was chaplains were overworked and underpresent and underpaid, that there just weren't enough chaplains to go around. And not only were there not enough chaplains to go around, but there wasn't a diversity of chaplains to go around. If you walk into any hospital across this country with a chaplain, you'll likely find a Protestant chaplain. You may not find a Catholic chaplain. You may not find a Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or Sikh chaplain, Baha'i. Maybe some of the bigger cities, but generally not. And it became very clear to me, again, in that the walls are down, that if we are desensitized to speaking to each other through screens, and we could actually experience each other in compassionate ways through screens, then there's a whole different world here. And so the idea for Spiritual was born. And what we do is we provide 24/7 virtual chaplaincy on demand, all faiths, all the time. And so we contract with hospitals and hospice and long-term care centers and eventually other types of institutions. And we believe that in-person chaplaincy is the best. However, if there isn't an in-person chaplain available, either of a certain denomination or religiosity or certain preference, then the patient or the family or the healthcare practitioner is handed a tablet. They're able to connect in a HIPAA-compliant platform with one of our chaplain network who's on call, and they're able to be cared for.
What a great idea.
Thanks.
Is it going in the right direction?
Yeah, so
you feeling good about where it's going?
Spirituel.health is the where people can learn more about it. It's SPIRITUWELL.health. It is going in the right direction. We've hired a great CEO. His name is Andrew Savitz. The challenge is in the healthcare world, the on-ramp to a lot of things is very slow. And so we're in conversations with a lot sounds such a sophomoric term, but a lot of different institutions. And we're ready to deploy. Our chaplain network is part of my role is not only co-founder, but I think my title is Chief People and Spiritual Officer. And so I'm building out that chaplain network and the credentialing model and the service model. And we're ready to rock. We just need to sign on the dotted line with a number of these institutions to get going.
Sweet.
Thanks,
man. You got so much cool stuff going on, and one thing, so it was very cool that you talked about, your paradigm shifting event. That is something that we like to talk about. And you did touch on the divorce aspect of things, but I think since I've known you, your life has changed drastically, because not only have you left the rabbinical role and you started your firm, and then obviously with Spiritual and the work that you're doing there, you were remarried, and you've got this amazing family, and you've alluded to all the kids. So tell me about all the craziness you got going on the personal side of things.
Sure. So since you mentioned married, I'll talk about my incredible wife, Zoe.
Yeah.
Zoe is my partner through it all, so much so that I believe that all of these roads pointed to her for me, and all of the roads pointed to me for her. And she is an incredible life partner, an incredible stepmother, and an incredible everything. She is my cheerleader. I believe that she is the reason that I was able to leave the synagogue world. And what I mean by that is not because she foot the bills or funded my departure, but what I mean is you really need an incredible balanced moral compass and anchor of real strength and support to keep you grounded, especially when you live in a world that is constantly stroking your ego, and you take that out of the equation and enter a world that is constantly defeatist and rejectionist, right? That's the world of solopreneur and entrepreneurialism. So she's been there for me, and it's such a beacon of light. Her world is in the nonprofit world, in the philanthropy world. She's often in cause partnerships and social impact. She currently works for Operation Homefront, doing partnership marketing and management for them. She's a senior director over there. I have 4 incredible children. Aliza and Akiva are 14-year-old twins. Aliza is my daughter. Akiva is my son. They are twins through and through, in the way that they know exactly what each other is thinking and know exactly how to push each other's buttons. They're great, and they're 8th graders going on 9th grade, and it's very clear. I have an 11-year-old daughter, Miri, who is my little sprite. It gives me a run for my money for sure. And then my little guy, Yoni, is 8. And he is the bull in the china shop that doesn't realize that he's bumped into everything. And yet uses a vocabulary of a 50-year-old and often asks me the most pensive questions that I stop in my tracks every single day.
I love it. Love it. Sounds like awesome family, beautiful names. And I'm sure there's meaning behind everyone. We won't get into all that, but I just want to make sure that I shouted that out. Well, hey, I want to give an opportunity to get people to know you better here through our 9 questions. Let's take a quick break. Let's listen to a few more of our community supporters. We're going to come back and we're going to hammer Avi on some of these 9 questions. So we'll be right back. Regardless if you're a startup just figuring things out or a medium-sized organization with a full team, having a legal partner by your side is crucial. Seiler Law is fiercely loyal to their clients and are passionate about removing headaches and roadblocks that can pop up during the growth of your business. Whether you need general outside counsel, are planning a business transaction, or even need someone to guide you through the estate planning process, the team at Seiler Law are the advocates for you. Visit seilerlaw.com to learn more. Seiler Law, where experience meets pragmatism. For more than 20 years, Kaisa has been the trusted financial advisor for women, business owners, executives, and high net worth families, developing financial plans designed to meet them where they are and propel them to where they want to be. Their mission is to remove the worry and stress associated with financial planning and replace it with clarity and confidence. The Kaisa team takes the time to understand each client's unique situation, from financial concerns to the visions that they have for current and future generations, in order to create a truly customized plan. Through consistent communication and personal attentiveness, Kaisa is fiercely devoted to personal well-being and financial prosperity. Get to know the Kaisa team and how they can serve you at kaisawealth.com. When you think of a typical CPA firm, you probably think of tax planning. Well, that just scratches the surface of what Boulay offers their clients. By providing smart, in-depth thinking from experts in accounting, audit, tax, and business consulting, they know what it takes to achieve financial success. Whether it's protecting your business, building your wealth, or securing your future, you can count on Boulay to go beyond addressing just financial matters and providing you with tailor-made, workable solutions. Learn about all they have to offer at bouleygroup.com. Boulay, helping you get there. All right, everybody needs a bank. Not just any bank, a good community bank. From personal needs like checking and savings accounts to business services like financing and M&A support, the team at Flagship Bank is there to provide you with the assistance you need so you can spend less time thinking about your finances and more time enjoying what your money can do for you. To learn more, head over to Flagship Banks, that's flagshipbanks with an S.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Flagship Bank, investing in you. All right, we're back with Avi, and you know, awesome journey. You've seen a lot of things. I think we got a really good overview on things, but we need to dive in a little bit and start to peel off some layers of this onion. Can you confirm with me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
I have no idea what you're about to ask me. I love that there are 9 questions because of C9, but I have no idea what you're about to ask me.
All right, brother, let's do this thing. Question 1: what are you reading or listening to right now?
What am I reading right now? The book is called Killers of the Flower Moon. The author's name escapes me right now, but I have an incredible client in Oklahoma and have become surprisingly enamored with Oklahoma. And so first I read Boomtown because the chief strategy officer sent me a copy and said, you need to read this if you want to understand us. And it was amazing. I highly recommend it. And one of the board members who is from Tulsa taught me about the race massacres of Tulsa and what was going on 100 years ago and kind of systemic racism there. She said, you need to read this book as well. And so I highly recommend that too.
Awesome.
And you asked me reading, and there was another. Was it listening?
No, so I was just reading or listening to. So some people, me, you know, like I don't read a book.
You mean Audible and things like that?
Yeah, 100%.
Got it. Yeah, so that's what I'm reading right now.
All right, sweet. What is one thing that immediately makes you smile?
Seeing my children's joy just on their faces. Yeah, just watching them smile just makes my eyes twinkle.
I'll just tell you, from anybody who's watching this on YouTube, they saw it, but if you're not watching it and you're listening to it, I watched your demeanor kind of change when you talked about your family than when you talked about yourself. So I just wanted to recognize that and give you a shout out on that too.
Sure.
Question 3, describe to me, and don't go crazy here, but let's just a high overview. Describe the perfect Saturday.
Oh, perfect Saturday. So Saturday, remember, is Shabbat for us, and I'm Sabbath observant.
Mhm.
But I think I won't go into high detail, but a winter Saturday is very different than a summer Saturday. A
Okay.
summer Saturday is a lot of time outdoors with friends, in the community, in the neighborhood. I don't drive on the Sabbath. So it's having a lot of people over. We have a pool, friends often because we don't go out elsewhere. They're coming over and hanging at our pool. Lots of drinks, lots of food, lots of good time. The day starts with synagogue, ends with good celebration, things like that. In the winter, the perfect Saturday would be going up to Grandview Lodge in Nisswa, getting out of town, hunkering down, going with another family, and just really embracing the winter, being there, not being able to go to synagogue because there isn't one there, but gathering with families, celebrating Shabbat together, and still being able to observe and be a part of a community.
Ah, love it. Love it. All right. First, I got a couple of would you rather questions, and these are fun. Would you rather have super sensitive hearing or super sensitive taste buds?
I think super sensitive taste buds, because my wife has both super sensitive hearing and super sensitive taste buds. And it's far better when I experience her saying, the soup that you just made needs some salt, than can you keep it down? You talk too
Yeah, well
loudly.
said. Yeah. Sometimes there's things that you hear that you don't want to hear if you've got super sensitive hearing. And
Correct.
then maybe it's okay to deal with the taste bud side of thing. I love that.
That's right.
What is one guilty pleasure that you choose to indulge in?
This is a hard one. There are others, and I didn't consider this a guilty pleasure until I dislocated my shoulder a month and a half ago. But beer league ice hockey is, at this point, at 42, 100% a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I haven't fully decided I'm getting back on the ice until I'm done with my PT and see what the story is. However, knowing that I could completely be sacrificing my income and being laid up as a result of just a stupid play or being an idiot on the ice, that's a little bit of a guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah,
Granted,
that's
it's
it.
catharsis, it's amazing, but it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure.
Well, so is the Real Housewives of whatever town. So I'd
That's
rather
right.
have you be committed to beer league hockey than wasting your brain away on some meaningless TV show. So
Sure, sure.
that's a pretty good guilty pleasure if you ask me.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. All right. If you could give a TED talk on anything except something related to your career, and I'm going to say, your rabbinical role, consulting, all that stuff, right? All the stuff we talked about. If you could do a TED talk on something other than those things, what would it be?
If I had to give a TED talk that wasn't work related, granted, like I said, everything is people, so it's all work related, right? As we say in the Jewish world, everything is Torah. I would give a talk on humility is a constant effort and a constant struggle and a constant journey for every single person. And that the same way that someone who is an alcoholic is a recovering alcoholic, right? That you're in a constant state of recovery, that all of us are in constant pursuit of humility. And that's the process that we need to be reflecting on every day.
Yeah. You've thought about that. So I love that. It just
Oh
took you
yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
to dig that out. I love that. Well said. What was your favorite concert you've ever attended?
Oh, there's so many good ones. And you could tell that I'm very bad at one answer. I'll start with, I'm a huge Dave Matthews fan, and I've probably been to like 40 or 50 Dave Matthews shows, and I'm replaying all of them in my head. So it'd be easy to pick out one of those, which they are, but that would be a cheat. So I'm going to give you a non-Dave Matthews show, but I know that these are quick questions. You got to indulge me for a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
Billy Joel at, I think at the time it was Continental Airlines Arena. It was at the Meadowlands. And the reason is because my best friend Chad and I, when we were in high school, I opened up a bottle of Surge, if you remember,
Yep.
and won concert tickets.
Sweet.
And
In the
I was
cap?
able to, yeah, in the cap, and I was able to choose which concerts we went to, and we went to go see Rusted Root, which was amazing, and we went to see Billy Joel, which was amazing. And when we got to the Billy Joel show, some random guy saw us and moved us up, and we ended up these amazing seats. He had 5 pianos on the stage and kept rotating from the piano to piano, so everyone had a great view. It was incredible. So, and that was hallmark jersey for
Yeah.
me. I mean,
Yeah.
Hallmark jersey.
I can only imagine. I think, yeah, that sounds awesome. Just,
Yeah.
I don't think the people that I've had in this show that I've asked that question have probably not seen Billy Joel, because I've watched Billy Joel on video, right? Like concert
Oh yeah,
videos. And
yeah.
I'm like, this is one of the best shows I've ever seen on video.
It was incredible. It was in 1999, I think, 98 or 99. It was incredible.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay. Would you rather always say everything on your mind or never speak again?
Always say everything on my mind. That's not
Right.
even that's not even a question for me.
I knew I had to ask it, but I knew that is probably the dumbest question I've ever asked. Knowing you
My
and
yeah, my colleague Rabbi Alexander Davis would often go to silent meditation retreats, and he would come back, and I would say to him, I can't even sit for 5 minutes. How do you do this? And a lot of people love it, and it's really fulfilling. And I get it. That exercise is amazing. You could tell I'm talking right now. Absolutely not.
Yep, 100%. Okay, last one. If you could have dinner with two people, alive or dead, who would they be? Two people only.
That's so hard. Because in my mind, I'm like, should I pick this author that I love? Should I pick this artist I love? Should I pick all these things? Okay, so I think number one is Jack Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy. Granted, I've become a bit disillusioned as I've learned more about his personal life and things like that. But he was my role model when I was a kid. I knew every speech of his by heart. I was a big Jack Kennedy fan, and that influenced a lot of my approach to the world and politics and things like that. So that's number one. Number two, this answer would be different if you would have asked me maybe a year ago, but I would say Theodore Herzl. Theodore Herzl was a really interesting journalist in the late 19th century who was covering the Dreyfus affair, the trial of Dreyfus, who was effectively scapegoated and found guilty because he was Jewish. And this is in France. And as a result of this trial, it led him to realize that Zionism and a Jewish country in our Jewish homeland was necessary for Jewish survival. And that was really a sea change moment in the universe. And I would want to know what he thinks about Israel today, what he thinks about the state of anti-Semitism today, what he thinks we should be doing today, and if he believes that his dream was fulfilled. He said, "Im tirtzu ein zo agada." If you will it, it is. People often translate it, "If you will it, it is no dream." It's a great sentiment, but it really is. If you will it, it is no legend. Like, it's not a story. If you really put your mind, if you desire it, it's not just a story, which is a great business mantra anyway. But the idea of that message in our world today, our world is so broken in so many ways. You know, this message of hope is just so powerful, which, by the way, JFK was a message of hope also. Now, I will say, you asked me to pick two, but there are a lot of amazing women I would have put on that list also. But you asked me to pick two.
I did ask you to pick two. You know, man, I got to tell you, like, you are one of those people I could just sit and have a conversation with. One, because I feel like I'm constantly learning, and we've lived such different life experiences up to this point. So to me, like, I feel like that's a gift. I want more people to get to know you. That's a whole reason why I do this podcast. I'll tell you, like, you're one of our facilitators for C9 Group, and watching you in your element with our team summit last week, knowing that we probably have one of the tightest groups in C9 with your leadership is just a huge testament to who you are. Starting to just get a glimpse into who you are through this podcast. I learned things about people, and so selfishly, that's what I love about doing this, because now I get a whole new perspective on you that because of details, right? That just helps shape perspective. So I love it, dude, and I'm so thankful that our paths crossed. If you look back, I just want to say this real quick before we sign off here. Is, you know, I look back maybe 30 episodes, and I did the podcast with Skylar Wordy, who introduced us. And one of the questions was, who's your mentor and why? And it was you. And, you know, that's that's pretty freaking cool, man. Like for you to come full circle here, and I've never had that experience of having somebody who's part of our community shout out another person as their mentor. You know, that just is a testament to who you are, your character, and I'm just proud to call you a friend. With that all being said,
The
I got
feel
to go off.
before you go on, the feeling is mutual. I got to
All
interrupt you.
right.
The feeling is mutual.
Yeah.
Like
Okay, good.
that, I'm so grateful to you and this community and the friendship and all of it. So, but keep
All right.
keep going.
Good, good. Now, how can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you? All of that stuff, socials, all that stuff.
Sure. So the easiest way that I find to connect with other people is the way that people could connect with me too, and that's on LinkedIn. I'm the only Avi Olitzky in the world, and that's beautiful. So if you
Pretty
Google
awesome.
Avi Olitzky, you'll find the pieces that I've written that you will agree with and disagree with. You'll find all different bios and things like that. Easy peasy. OlitzkyConsulting.com is my firm's website. Really, we use that more of a placeholder, which is just another way to connect with me and to connect with us. And you're welcome to dig me on Facebook or Instagram. We didn't even talk about it. I bake challah every week. So my Instagram handle is Abba Bakes Challah. Abba means dad in Hebrew. So Abba Bakes Challah. And all it is challah and different challah that I bake, you know, egg braided bread that connected to the weekly Torah portion, right? So different things like that. But LinkedIn or my email, which is easiest if people can figure out how to spell Olitzky, is Avi, AVI, at Olitzky, OLITZKY consulting.com. All of those work.
All right, man. Can't thank you enough. I hope people reach out to you. They need to get to know you as I have, and consider you a friend. On behalf of Avi, this has been the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.